PianoLessons.com, the #1 name in piano lessons online.
Hi, I'm Nate Bosch with PianoLessons.com. Today I want to talk to you about the 12-bar blues. This is a chord progression. Well, it's over 12 bars as its name says, and it uses 3 chords. We have, let's use the key of G for example, the 1 chord, which is the G, the 4 chord, the C, the 5 chord, the D. So those 3 chords right there. Now the basic structure, it's broken up into 3 lines of 4 bars. And so the first one we start with, I'm just going to do a basic pattern. I'll teach you this pattern in a bit, but this will just show you the progression. We start with the 1 chord. Here's bar number 2, 3, 4. So we got 4 bars of the 1 chord. Now in the second line, we go to 2 bars of the 4 chord. Back down to 2 bars of the 1 chord. Now we get in the third line, we start with 1 bar of the 5 chord, 1 bar of the 4 chord, and then 1 bar of the 1 chord. The last bar is usually a filler to get you back to the top again, which usually brings you to the 5 chord. And we're back to the top. So in this progression we have 4 measures of the G chord, which is our 1 chord. Then we go to 2 measures of the 4 chord, C, back down to 2 measures of the 1 chord, G. We have a 5 chord, D, 4 chord, C, 1 measure of the 1 chord, G, and then our bridge to get us through back to the top again, which we throw a 5 chord in there. At the end of the song, it would be the 1 chord, sort of our root, our finish. So there you have the basic pattern. That's the 12-bar blues. Now I'm just going to show you a couple little tips and tricks so that we can be playing a little bit of the 12-bar blues right now. So let's start with the left hand pattern that I was playing there. In the left hand, we got G on the bottom, D a fifth above, and then we just, there's one way of playing it, or, so just rocking these 2 fingers back and forth between the D and the E. So for each bar, bar 3, 4, and we go to the 4 chord, C, back down to 1, and we go to the 5 chord, 4 chord, the 1 chord, change it a little bit there because we're coming back to the top. And there you have the 12-bar blues. Now the thing about the blues is, what gives it that bluesy sound is a couple of things. In a blues scale, which you can check some of the other resources, I go through all of the different blues scales. Now we're in the key of G. In the G blues scale, I'll just quickly run it. What gives it that bluesy sound is the 3rd and the 7th. Now the 3rd note of this scale is a flat note, and that 7th note. So when we're playing the G blues scale, well, we could play a G chord over top of it. Sounds all right, but it doesn't really have that bluesy sound. Well, I'm going to show you just a simple little pattern you can use to give it that bluesy sound. We're going to add the 7th note to our G chord. So here's the pattern. And on top of that, we're going to add a D and an F. Now if we look at the G chord, we got G, B, D, and now we're adding the 7th, that's that interval there, and that's called a dominant 7th chord. Now that little we're going to do that. Watch. Sounds a little more bluesy than. So let's do that again. So D, F, E, G, back and forth. Now when we switch to the 4 chord, our C chord, we're going to play the same sort of thing. We're going to play the 7th, the dominant 7th there, of this chord. So in this case it would be, so we'd have the G and the B flat going up to the A and C and back. So we have the first one in G. When we get to the 4 chord, here's our little lick. We get back down to the G. Now when we get to the 5 chord, it's the same thing. We have the 7th. So here's the chord. And there's that minor 7th interval. So here's our notes, the A and the C, and the B and the D. And then that's on the 5 chord. So we have the, and we go back down to the 4 chord. We have the G and the B flat again. Now down to the 1. Now we're back in. Changing it up here a bit. Now here's where the blues scale comes in handy. Now, I'll teach you that later. Now let's go to the 5, 4, 1. Finish off with a nice dominant 7th chord. There you have that bluesy sound, and there's the basic 12-bar blues.